Okay, well, I'll go ahead and start. Welcome, everyone. Sorry about the slight delay. This is our September board meeting. It doesn't feel like it, but autumn actually starts on Friday, so winter is coming. And we'll be at 6 o'clock, wherever we are in the agenda, we'll be stopping to do energy efficiency to have our presentation from VEIC, just as a mention there. Please note that all board members are present. And I'm Anna Marie Pavlik Rosen, Chair. To my right, Walt Baldwin, Vice Chair. Dawn Hale, our Secretary Treasurer. And Steve Mason, Member. And James Liebman is here. He'll be at his position shortly. Our first item of business is consider approving minutes from the August 15th, 2018 special board meeting, the August 21st, 2018 board meeting, the August 23rd, 2018 special morning meeting, the August 24th, 2018 special board meeting, and the August 24th, 2018 special board meeting, as well as the August 25th, 2018 special board meeting, the September 4th, 2018 closed session special board meeting, and the September 4th public hearing. Has everyone had a chance to look at the minutes?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and second. All in favor of accepting the minutes? Aye. Thank you. On to item 2, accept the audit prepared by Crowe LLP for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2018, as required by KRS 96.185. So, David, did you want to comment on the audit, or I know?
Yes, ma'am. We have, as you stated, are required to have an annual external audit. Our fiscal year does end each June 30th. So we have representatives from Crowe, our auditing firm, here today. Alice Cowley and Daniel Levitt are here to present for us. So I think we have in our board packet, starting on page 24 is the audit. You'll notice there's 2 different page numbers. The one at the bottom of the page is the board packet number. So when she was referring to page numbers, she's probably referring to the audit page number, just to keep everybody on the same page. So with that, I'll turn it over to Alice.
Sure. Thank you for having me today. My name is Alice Cowley, and I am an audit senior manager with Crowe out of our Louisville office. And I have with me Daniel Levitt, who is an audit manager out of Crowe's Lexington office. We were the lead members of the financial statement audit team for the Frankfort Plant Board for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2018. So you do have a couple of reports that we've provided to you that I'm just going to go over some highlights of. The first one is the financial statements themselves, which includes our audit opinion. Our audit opinion is on page 1 of that report. That's the larger report that you have that is titled Financial Statements. Towards the bottom of page 1, you can see that our opinion was an unmodified opinion. So that's a clean audit opinion. That means that the financial statements that are contained in this report, based on our audit procedures, we believe those figures to be materially accurate, as well as presented in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. There's also a paragraph at the end of page 1 that is new for 2018, titled Emphasis of Matter. So we did want to bring your attention to this. This relates to GASB statement number 75. If you're aware of that statement, it essentially requires government entities that are involved with state pension and insurance plans, as the board's an employer in the CERS Kentucky plan, to, in addition to recording a liability for the pension, which was implemented about 3 years ago with GASB 68, to record a similar liability for the insurance benefits that are provided. So I would like to flip to page 10 so you can kind of see the impact of that implementation. So page 10 is the balance sheet. And about halfway down the page, in the liability section, long-term liabilities, you'll see that there is a new item for net OPEB liability in the amount of about $9.6 million. That is an actuarially determined figure at the county employees retirement system itself. So we take their audit and actuary reports provided along with their allocation schedule. So they allocate their net liability to each of their individual employers. And so that's the new implementation that's required to be reported this year. You can see towards the bottom of the page that due to this restatement and this adoption, that the unrestricted net position of the board is now in a negative position, which may look, a little bit strange, but we wanted to just communicate to you all and re-emphasize that these expenses and the related liabilities are not cash expenses. They're accounting standards and implementing those standards. So it really does not impact the actual, cash expense that's going out the door from year to year. On page 11, this is the income statement. And again, I know you've seen these results in the monthly reporting, but just at a very high level, if you're looking at, operating revenues are increasing year over year, operating expenses are increasing at what appears to be a higher pace. A big portion of that is that pension and that insurance expense that I just mentioned. So of the $99.6 million of operating expenses, about 3.2 of that was just for the accounting of the pension and the OPEB. About $2 million of that are the actual payments that go to the CERS plan. And then moving towards the bottom of the page, you can see that the overall change in net position for the year was $3.8 million. And the restatement for this implementation on the net position was a negative $6.89 million. As it pertains to the notes to the financial statements, so that's starting on page 13. I'm not going to cover any of these in detail. They really didn't change from the prior year. Of course, related to what I was just talking about, we did insert a footnote related to the restatement, and there's additional information related to that plan itself, sort of towards the back of this report. And I will pause here if there are any questions or comments on the audited financial statements. The other report that I wanted to go over with you all is more qualitative in nature as it relates to our audit. So besides just the financial information that we're looking at, we are also looking at internal controls as they relate to financial reporting. So if you were on the board this time last year, you remember our partner, Scott Nickerson, going over a number of recommendations with you that we had come out of last year's audit. And so we have provided a management letter to you. And what we've done to kind of highlight the improvements that we've noted over the course of 1 year, we've included all of the prior year comments here and now their status as of now. So we are very pleased to report to you that the deficiency that was identified last year related to information technology has been resolved at this point as it relates to financial reporting. Last year, every year we have an IT audit team that comes out on site and looks at the systems. And really we are just looking at things that could impact financial reporting. So of course the billing system as well as the general ledger system. And so what we've noted this year is that all of the recommendations that we had last year were implemented, and we were able to rely on those systems as it relates to the 2018 audit. On page 2 of the management letter, we also had a comment relating to an inventory obsolescence policy, essentially that there was not a formalized policy over analyzing inventory for obsolescence, and we've also noted that that has been resolved during 2018. And then the last two comments we feel like these two comments are probably still in progress, although we have noted that there has been improvement made. As it relates to conflict of interest statements, we are aware and we've looked at the annual conflict of interest statements that are signed by the board as well as upper level management. We feel that this kind of series of recommendations is still in progress and that there's probably still room for improvement there, as well as for the last finding related to capital assets tracking. And since, capital assets is such a significant, dollar amount in terms of the asset as well as related depreciation expense, that we feel that that process could probably be more automated to make it less prone to human error, essentially. We didn't find any errors in the testing of capital assets. So those are our two reports that I wanted to cover with you. I also wanted to note that there were no audit adjustments, meaning we did not have to change any of the numbers that were provided to us by management, and there were no waived audit adjustments, meaning that there was nothing that we found that was in error above sort of our materiality thresholds. And I think that for an organization like the Frankfort Plant Board, that should be expected, but also not taken for granted. So I would really like to commend Katrina and David and their accounting and finance team for not only the accurate financial reporting, but also just their transparency throughout this process.
Thank you. That's quite a compliment to David and Katrina and the department. I appreciate that. That's very good.
Thank you. So you will see that these reports are in draft form, and we are planning to finalize this week without any changes at this point. So if there are any comments or questions, we'd be happy to take those. Otherwise, we do plan to finalize these reports here in the next few days.
What we're asking the board to do is to just accept the audit draft as before you tonight, and if you do, we'll get those finals out and posted on all the appropriate websites and all the compliance that we need to do with that. So.
Okay. No comments or questions?
I'll second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any questions for the research that's been done, the auditor's report? Okay. All in favor of accepting the report? Aye. Motion passed. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Item number 3, accept, I guess item number 3 is Katrina will report. Yes, more numbers.
Well, these are the August financial statements, and they start on page 78 of your board package. First page is the statement of net position. If you look on line 65, total assets of almost 180 million. Line 130 shows total liabilities of 100 million. Net position on line 160 of 79 million. And then total liabilities and net position on line 165 of 180 million. The next page, 79, is the cash and investment schedule, which is required per our investment policy. Shows a breakdown of our cash, restricted and unrestricted cash, and restricted and unrestricted investments. Line 40 shows total restricted cash of just under 2 million. Line 75 shows unrestricted cash of 23.6 million. And line 80, add those two together, you get total restricted and unrestricted cash of 25 million as of August 31st. If you'll move down to line 115, total restricted investments of 9.2 million. Line 125 is unrestricted investments of 118,000. Add those together, you get total investments of 9.3 million. Page 80 is a snapshot of our bonds, leases, and loans payable. So far, we have not had any payments made on these loans, no payments due, and we haven't borrowed any, so this is exactly the same statement that you've saw for June and July. Or I'm sorry, just for July. Page 81 and 82 show the company-wide financial statements, or income statement, sorry. We'll look at page 82, it's a little bit more detailed. Looking at the year-to-date column, which is the third column of numbers, on line 20, total operating revenue of just under $18 million. Line 50 shows total operating expenses of $12.3 million. And net those two together, you have a gross contribution on line 55 of $5.5 million. If you'll jump down to line 280, you'll see total general and admin expenses of $3.6 million. Line 350 shows other revenue of $313,000. And then the bottom line, 355, shows our net contribution for 2 months of $2.2 million. Pages 83 through 97 show that same data, just sliced and diced into the different departments and divisions. On page 98, you will see that we did sell 3 vehicles in the month of August. They were all fully depreciated. Pages 99 through 101 show all the bank accounts and the summary level of the activity for the month of August. And then to break down the detail of our electronic payments, you'll see that on page 102. And then pages 103 to 151 shows the detail of our O&M check register for all the checks that we issued this month. And then lastly, pages 152 to 155 shows the detail of our Impress checking account. So that's all the Impress checks written this month. Any questions?
Do we have a motion to accept the financials from August?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and second. All in favor of accepting the electric, water, and cable financials for August?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, on to item number 4, public comment. If anyone has any public comment, we will have a public comment session during or as part of the energy efficiency presentation. So if you have comments pertaining to that, I would hold off until then. But any other comments right now would be good.
I just have something brief.
Okay, thank you, Kathy. Go ahead.
It's a really good business.
Okay, great.
Okay. I want to thank everyone, the staff. Kathy, there was a great article in the paper about Customer Appreciation Day on the 75th anniversary. You know, it was a fun day out here. It was great seeing all the past general managers and past board people, and you know, it just kind of gave the customers a chance to see a little bit about what Frankfort Plant Board is all about. I think the exhibit was just extraordinary. It was really, really good. So I appreciate y'all doing it. Thank you so much.
So I should mention, this was Kathy Warner.
Yes,
And,
Lauren. I'm sorry. See, I think y'all should know me.
Well, I'm thinking of our future viewers, and also that the display that Kathy Lindsay put together is going to be on display for the next 6 months or it's permanent. Oh, it's permanent. So people can stop by and see it during our normal lobby hours, which is 7:30 in the morning until 4:30, 8:30 until 4:30. 8 to 4:30. So.
Well, it really is it's really a nice exhibit. I think when they first opened it, I was a little overwhelmed. I'm like, did they do all this? But yeah, you know, you really did. But it's a great history thing. And, you know, maybe for those who didn't read the paper or maybe didn't come, you know, maybe you could put something in the billing, maybe to talk about that a little bit too, if it's not too expensive for you all. So just promote Frankfort Plant Board a little bit.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Okay. Looks like all of our public comments for right now. Item number 5, departmental reports. So were there any website customer comments?
No,
Nope.
ma'am, not this month.
Okay. So the cable department, Adam.
Yes, ma'am. Cable report starts on page 158 of the board package. The first page of the report are the customer penetration numbers. Everything's at or above budget this month. We are down a little bit on VOD. Part of me thinks it's, you know, everybody going back to school in August and maybe not as many movie titles. So that number is down. Page 159 is the trouble call report for the month of August. We're up quite a bit versus last year, and we're up actually about 150 something versus last month. Several things going on. We continue to change out outdoor phone units to indoors. We also continue to change out modem router combos, and customers are still, you know, changing out some of their equipment. The other thing that might have got the report a little skewed is the active replacement program. Because sometimes, even though we put notices out, we'll still have people call in and put trouble tickets in, so that might make this number rise, because last month was the first full month of that program.
Okay.
So, but I think all in all, we'll watch it, but it's not too bad, I think. So, page 160 is the outages for the month. We had 5 outages. We had a bad piece of cable in node 3. We had a power supply failure in node 64. Broken cable in node 1, which is the Leewood Drive area. Node 5, which is West Main, we had some water damage to some equipment. And the last outage was in node 13, Distro Estates. We had a piece of line gear burn up. There any questions on me?
Questions? Looks good. Thank you, Adam.
Thanks.
Okay, customer service.
Good morning. It's not morning, it's afternoon. Good afternoon,
Cassie.
everybody. Customer service, we added 224 new accounts for the month of August, processed 5,778 calls, and assisted 1,723 walk-ins in the office. And then the cashier transactions totaled 7,400 approximately. The drive-through is still averaging about 1,200 per month now that we've been open over a year now. We're seeing there's an actual average there, and that's about 1,200 per month for the drive-through. So, happy to answer any questions you might have.
Sounds good.
Thank you all.
Okay, thank you. Okay, electric department.
Good evening. The electric department starts on page 164. And if you can look, you see our SAIDI numbers has creeped up a little bit this time due to all the storms, but it's at 63. If you go to the next page, you can see our pie chart showing the majority of our outages, of course, were storm-related and lightning-related. And a lot of those unknown and others were also storm and lightning-related. We just couldn't pin it down. We had a total of 38 outages this month, and of course the majority of them were storm. The total number of affected customers this month were 301. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Sounds good. Thank you. So, the SEPA status.
Yes, Madam Chair, Board, you'll notice the SEPA report starts on page 168 in your packet. And for the month of July, we are $13,627 ahead. That's good news compared to what we've seen in some of the previous months. And that leaves us for the calendar year at $12,583 ahead. Again, this month's better numbers are directly related to we had a higher average energy price in the market that SEPA received. It was a 55 cents per megawatt hour increase over June's average price. And then we had a 16.53% higher allocation of energy due to the dams being able to produce more energy. So those two combined gave us a good month this month. So I would be happy to answer any questions you have. That the report is 68, 169, and 170.
So have we had more rain than normal this year? Has that helped the dam
Significantly
situation?
more. Julie could tell you exactly
Okay.
to the
But as far as hydro, it's been...
they've had significantly more rain in the state. I think there's a lot of factors go into it. Obviously, rain and the amount of water in the dam in the impoundments is actually one of them. But they have other operational restrictions, and depending on what they're doing. But I don't know all the details. But they were able to. I'm sure a lot of it pertaining to rain.
Okay, that's good. Okay, thank you. And safety. Oh, I'm sorry, I goofed. KYMEA. I guess I looked for more blue.
Sure, I'm just going to update everyone. For our customers watching or here, would like to go to our website. If you go to the top of our website to services, go to electric, and about a third of the way down, you can go to the KyMEA website that shows the board meetings and all of the agenda items and attachments for those. The next meeting will be held in Bowling Green at Bowling Green Municipal Utilities on September 27th at 10 a.m. Central. So anybody that'd like to attend that, there are open meetings. But other than that, I've provided my monthly report to the board and video, and I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Do you think they'll start having meetings at the new site in Louisville in the near future?
They're shooting for November.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think October they're going to do the meeting in Lexington in conjunction with the Kentucky Municipal Utility Association.
Oh, okay.
And then in November would be the first meeting in Louisville at their headquarters.
When are they moving in? It looks like it's about done.
November, I think they're in that actual building that they're going to be in, just in another space.
Oh.
But the actual space they're building out should be ready to be moving in. And
Looked like they were delivering furniture, so it seemed like it was close.
they've got and then you can look in Mr. Bursch's CEO report. He walks out some timelines there too.
Okay. Good. Is there anything coming up there in terms of future contracts?
No, there's none on the horizon right now. I know there's some things relating to the Dean Pancaking. Probably want to sit back and see how that goes. But I think right now there's nothing immediately coming in the next few months.
Okay. So are we waiting for a response from FERC?
There's a deadline, I believe it's the first week of October, for response to them, to FERC. And then we'll just go from there. I'm not sure what the rest of the timeline is regarding FERC actually responding to the filing.
Oh, by early October. Okay. That'll be interesting. Okay, I guess now we're ready for safety.
We had some OSHA recordables again this month. There were 3. One involved a water department employee who got his hand caught in a conduit reel and smashed his finger, requiring medical treatment. We also had a cable employee who got his hand caught in a pinch point on a ladder and needs stitches, but there was no lost time involved with that. And then a support service employee, a groundskeeper, had a lost time accident when he got some debris or a particle in his eye, and he had to be off work a few days. But there were no vehicle accidents. So.
That's good. Okay, thank you. Okay, and water distribution. Julie. Or actually, Alan.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. Water Distribution Department, we had 2 main breaks and 4 outages. I'll answer any questions if anybody's got any. Thank you.
Okay, so now Julie.
Good evening. For the water treatment plant in the month of August, we treated 288 million gallons of water, averaging roughly 9.3 million gallons per day, so pumpage is still up as we move through the summer months. River flow was about 4,000 CFS, which is 2.5 billion gallons of water a day. We did receive a lot of rain. Someone asked about the rainfall. The average rain, the amount of rain officially recorded in Franklin County was 9.28 inches of rain in August. We had well over 10 inches at the water treatment plant. It was the 6th wettest August ever recorded, and we hit the 5th wettest summer ever recorded for Franklin County. So yes, we are about 17 inches over normal. So yes, we've had quite a bit of rain.
Well, I've had some spectacular weeds, 8-foot thistles, and that's...
We have too.
Probably why I was part of it.
We have. So if there are any other questions, we'll be happy to answer.
Thank
you.
Thank you. Okay. On to item number 6, consider approving the efforts that were discussed in the hearing. So consider improving increasing upload and download speeds for high-speed internet service, establish rates for whole-home Wi-Fi systems, and establishing rate for telephone seasonal disconnects.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Staff recommends the board approve the proposed increases to existing tiers of high-speed internet service and the establishment of optional internet and telephone charges. On August 21st, the board approved holding a public hearing on these items. That public hearing was held on September 4th, and if approved, the changes in rates would go into effect on October 1st. As a reminder, staff is proposing to increase the upload and download speeds for our standard, premium, ultra, and elite internet tiers, and also to establish rates for whole-home Wi-Fi and telephone seasonal disconnect. The changes to the tariff are reflected starting on pages 197 and 207 in your board package, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have on these items.
Have we received any customer comments one way or the other?
I received a handful of phone calls that were supportive of the measure. One of them was a gentleman who has our lowest speeds, and he expressed, that he would like to move up to, and so, I told him that I would share that with you guys.
Okay.
But he was supportive of the move as a whole. He just wanted to communicate his perspective.
Mm-hmm. That's good. Okay. Do we have some other board questions, comments? Okay. Would someone like to make a motion?
I'll make the motion to accept.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor of going ahead?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Motion passed. Thank you, Harvey. Okay. Item number 7. Well, we're going to hold off on item number 7 until 6 o'clock for people to arrive who might be interested in that. So we could, are there any general manager comments?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Is there any new and old business to cover?
I do.
Okay.
I have a couple, actually. One was originally on the agenda and then pulled from the agenda of changing the board packet online. And I don't really understand why it was pulled to begin with, but I think we really need to go ahead with that. I don't understand a reason for not going ahead with changing from diligent to e-meetings when we can save $12,000 or $13,000 a year by doing it.
Okay. I think the concern there is tied into the fact that there's some interest in polling whether just going to e-meetings is the right choice, whether there are any other options we want to consider.
Well, we did that. If you remember, this was brought up in February, and I think it was in March that David sent out the report showing what staff had done previously. They had looked, I mean, David, you can jump in to correct me here, but, other programs had been looked at, and e-meetings was the cheapest and the best for staff opinion. And we had the demonstration in our February meeting. It worked really great. Kathy had loaded it on the iPads. I had a chance to use it. I thought it was really great. So I don't know what more there is to do with that. You know, we've analyzed other options, and e-meetings looks like the best option. So I don't know what more there is to look at.
Well, it just seems to me that we're kind of in the same place we were before. You know, we were there, we hadn't done a rigorous software selection process, we hadn't done a requirements gathering process, and we still haven't. And I think, you know, we need to do that before we select, you know, a piece of software. So.
But can we at least put diligence on notice that we are planning to let that contract go?
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Well, and because I'm not sure how complex these pieces of software are. I mean, I've seen another one. It worked pretty much like your e-meeting. Because I went back and looked at the meeting. I wasn't on the board, and it works similar to Diligent. So I mean, I didn't see a whole lot of difference between the Diligent software and what was displayed in the presentation. So if there's a $15,000 difference, what's the holdup?
Well, I agree that diligent is probably what we want to go away from to something else, but the something else I don't think is clearly defined.
But this was the February meeting. So between February and September, and there isn't any resolution to what's a clear route to go?
Well, there hasn't been any movement on it since then. We're still at the same place we were in February. We've just got the same agenda item in front of us without any
But what else are you needing in front of you to make the determination?
The same thing I wanted in February. I'd like to see an actual software selection process happen and actually see an analysis of different packages, requirements gathering before that happens, and we haven't done that yet. So, and I'm fine with moving away from diligent. I mean, you know, I guess there's three options here we have at this juncture. We can move from diligent to e-meetings, or we can do nothing, or stay with diligent, or we can just move away from diligent, see if they'll extend the contract to cover us for a few months while we do a software selection process, and potentially move to another. And if they won't extend the contract, then we can do paper for a couple of months while we do a rigorous software selection process and then move forward.
I'm not sure what's so rigorous about $3,000 versus, I mean, what can you, let me ask you, David, what are the requirements if we did go to the e-meetings or whatever it's called? I mean, are they requiring a year's contract, or is it a 3-month, 6-month, or a month-to-month?
I can't remember the term. They had a initial annual, the first year's $3,000 for the training, setup, all of that good, and then the reoccurring annual charge of $1,000. Diligent today is $12,750. The memo we provided walked through.
Is it $12,000 a year?
$12,750 a year. We have to give them notice 30 days ahead, which would be November the 7th, I believe. And if we need to get information off of Diligent, we have to move it prior to that point. So,
okay. So Walt, did you find a problem with the e-meeting?
That's really not the point. The point
no,
is that,
no. Did you have a problem with the e-meeting?
Again, that's not the point. The point is that we didn't do a requirements process. We didn't define what things we wanted in a piece of software, and we didn't look at the different options to see what our choices were.
So you think there's a choice cheaper than the $3,000 and the $1,000 after that?
We don't know. We didn't look. We didn't compare.
When you say we, who do you mean? Because we did.
I mean, as a group, we didn't do a thorough requirements process. We didn't pull.
You as the board, because we did it.
I mean, us as the agency. Well, when we talked about it in February, there was certainly no requirements process that involved the board. I didn't see any evidence of a requirements process that involved staff.
Well, staff did.
This memo.
IT did. It was in the memo. It's right here.
And quite frankly, to me, that's micromanaging. They are the analysts. They are the people that kind of do the research for us, and they've done that research. We don't have to be directly, intimately involved in their work.
Well,
so
we're the users. We're one of the users of the software.
Yeah, but they brought back a recommendation from their analysis, and now it's up to us whether we accept it or reject it.
Well,
And
I would still like to see a thorough process done.
From the procurement angle, we don't even have to approve it. It's below the amount of money, right, that the procurement policy says.
Right.
So, it's more courtesy to bring it to us to begin with, because they don't have to. They could just go ahead and do it. And, they looked at other packages, it met the needs. And so for us to go back to square one on that, I just think is unnecessary.
I mean, as it relates to the ratepayer, that's 12,000, that's 11,000 the first year, 8,000 the first year, and 11,000 every year after that we're saving the ratepayer by going and following the staff recommendation. Their recommendation was to go to the e-meeting at a considerably cheaper price, and we're not doing anything.
Well, we can still save that money and cancel diligent, do paper for a few months, and
you're putting the burden on the staff for doing
requirements process.
Doing manual work when they can do it for $1,000 a year.
Well, one other aspect here, I think, in doing the process to figure out what software we want are other capabilities that software could also offer us.
What do we need as a board from this package that it doesn't give us?
That's the question. That's
but you would know. You would know. I mean, I know if there's something that this package doesn't give me, just from my usage of it, I understand what it does for me and what it may not do for me. So you should know that just from your utilization of these packages. So what does the e-meeting not do for you that you want it to do?
Well, those are exactly what we would define in the software selection process. It's not an off-the-cuff answer. I think that's the whole point.
But they've already done that.
I disagree.
Well, not from the board's aspect, because we don't know what the board wants. But you've had since February to get it to us, and we've not heard anything. So that's the reason we went ahead and put it back on the agenda as an informational item. We need this, we need information. We can't do anything. We did our homework from our end. If there's something else you want us to do, then we need to know that.
Well, and you all don't even use it anyway. You use paper.
Well, maybe we would if it was something.
But, I mean,
so where could we go from here? What would be?
Well, I would make a recommendation that we go away from diligent, but I don't want the staff to be caught having to do this manually either. I mean, my suggestion is we approve the e-meeting contract initiative and go and let it go. Let the staff go with the E3.
E-meetings.
E-meetings, come on. Walt's got me brainwashed with E3.
So, Walt, do you have a proposal as to how you would like to see this proceed?
I would like to see us, I mean, I'm fine whether I guess my thought would be we reach out to Diligent, see if they'll extend it for a couple of months, do a thorough software selection process, and then decide where we're going to go.
Well, I would like to know exactly what you're looking for, because do a thorough software process, well, to me, that's already been done. And so unless you're able to say specifically what you're looking for in board software, I don't see the point in doing another analysis.
Well, that's part of what a software selection process does. It defines the requirements. Once you have the requirements, you look at the packages that provide those requirements, and then you do your analysis based on that requirements gathering.
We've already done it.
I disagree.
Okay, if we wanted to get the requirement study done, where would we start? What would we start with?
We would start a small.
I mean, isn't that the role of the Frankfort Plant Board professional staff to do that? And they've done that. So I mean, why are we trying to do the analysis? They're doing the analysis.
Well, we're not talking about doing the analysis. We're asking for the analysis. Well, when we talked through it in February, there wasn't the detail there, and there wasn't a demonstration of doing an appropriate requirements process and doing a thorough analysis. And I don't see that anything's changed since February.
We did provide a memo, just
Yeah, I saw the
to
memo.
support my staff
Yeah, I
and
saw
make
the
sure,
memo,
for those watching, that we've done our job. The requirements that we listed out was a secure login, hosted solution, mobile-friendly, user permissions, with features that would include agenda builder, public view, minutes builder, offline access, what type of support, what type of training, what the initial cost and reoccurring cost. And, this is not a very complex thing. So if the board would like to do something different, fine. It sounds like everybody's in agreement with Diligent. We'll go ahead and give them.
Well, I'm not for that because that charges a ratepayer another $12,000. And I'm familiar with the package. I have used similar meeting packages that you have with Diligent and the e-meeting. So I'm familiar with it, and it's only a certain amount of things these packages do. And it sounded like when I reviewed the February meeting that it did all those things. And it's really just a portal to allow the board members to see, put things out there, and to see the board package. That's really all they do. So if we can find one that's $3,000 initially versus $12,000 and subsequently $1,000 versus $12,000 annually, why are we quibbling over not going to something that saves us $11,000? I'm through.
Well, and I think one of the features that I really liked with e-meetings was it was up on the screen. And so it made it easier for people in the audience and people watching on TV to actually follow along with the agenda and know what we were talking about. Because it is right now, you all don't have the board packet that we have. And this pretty much put things up on the screen so you were looking at what we were talking about. And I thought that was a really great feature. The motions were put up on the screen. Anybody that's watched or been here, you hear us quibble over motions for, a half an hour. And they're all up on the screen so we can see the wording. It was a great program. And it's cheap. And the support people are right here in Frankfort.
And it's a Kentucky-based product.
Right. So why, to me, it's a no-brainer not to go with it. So I'll make a motion that we direct the staff to give notice to Diligent that we are ending the contract we have with them and to go with e-meetings and do what's necessary to get that set up in November, December, whatever the correct time frame is.
I second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay. Kathy, I think maybe call this one by number.
Okay. Member Rosen?
No.
Member Baldwin?
No.
Member Mason?
Yes.
Member Hale?
Yes.
Okay, the motion failed. I do think we could have a second motion, which would be to change our status with Diligent, if anyone wanted to pursue.
Well, the problem with that, and I will at the next meeting if we haven't resolved this, but I don't want to leave the staff having to do preparation of a board packet, particularly as many meetings as we have, having to do that manually. I have done that in their shoes, preparing a package, and then I have also placed it in one of these kind of electronic form. It is tremendously easier to have this package to do it in than to have to do it manually. So I won't make that motion now.
What's your motion? I'm sorry.
No, she wanted to see if we would make a motion to do something different with Diligent, and I'm not prepared to leave the staff without any computerized mechanism to do the board package, because it's a tedious thing to do when you do it manually. It's tedious when you do it like you're doing it now. So, but at the next meeting, I hope we can resolve this.
So can the staff have what Walt wants done by October for our October meeting, so we can, because Diligent we have to give notice to by November 7th, you said?
I think at this point it's in the board's court to define what you want to use, what features you would like in the software. We think we've got at least 4 different choices. So I would put it back into the board's court as to deciding what you would like to see, what has not been provided.
Can we do this? At the next meeting, place on the agenda, you making a presentation of that sheet that shows what those proposals do, and then at that meeting, we can make a decision one way or the other?
We have seen that before.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, I don't know.
At this point, I have no idea what you all want us to do. I mean, I'm just going to be honest. We did what we thought we were supposed to do. If there's something different, if there's something else you want us to look at, because I'm going to be the one that's going to have to do it. So you need to tell me what you want me to do, because at this point I have no clue what else we need to do or what else we need to look at. I mean, I really don't.
Maybe Walt could just put it together and since you know what you want, and
Well, I don't know what I want. I know I want a regular software selection process, and, we should probably just get together offline. We could talk through it with IT.
That's totally,
Okay.
totally fine.
Good. Well,
Totally fine.
let's aim for that for the next meeting.
Well,
And
just make sure we are apprised of whatever the resolution that you all come up with prior to the meeting.
okay, so it is now 6 o'clock, so I think it's appropriate to go on to our energy efficiency presentation. And VEIC, Vermont Energy Investment Corporation, has completed.
Oh, I'm sorry. I wasn't through with old and new.
We can return to that, but we did tell the public the meeting at 6 o'clock would switch
Okay.
over to this. But we will return to your other questions, John.
Thank you. Thank you, James.
So we have Juliet Gilliard and Joanne Bachman here to present slides from their final report.
Thank you for having us here tonight. So we're here to present on our final report for the Energy Efficiency Program Plan.
Sorry.
Thank you. We're here to present on our final report for the Energy Efficiency Program Plan and to present our findings and recommendations for that report. So today we will be, in our presentation, we will start with a short introduction and a reminder of what the project objectives were. And then we will review the content of the final report in more details. We will present the key findings of the report. Then we will go into our recommendations for phase 1 programs. We will provide our recommendations on hiring an implementer versus choosing to implement programs in-house. We will present a little bit about the cost and benefits of energy efficiency programs that are proposed. And then we will provide an overview of what the next steps might be for FPB to move forward with those energy efficiency plans. So FPB hired VEIC to develop an energy efficiency program plan that is aligned with the needs of the community and to make sure that we engage the community to understand the needs, what might be the needs of the community in terms of energy efficiency. And that's what we did, and that's what we're presenting in the final report. But first I want to start with the definition of what energy efficiency is so that we're all on the same page here. Energy efficiency entails doing the same activity but using less energy for it. So using a simple example of a light bulb, we're not asking folks to turn off lights. This would be more like a conservation measure. What we would do rather for energy efficiency would be to install a more efficient light bulb. So we're not asking for any sacrifices here with energy efficiency. It's more installing more efficient products. So next we're going to go into some of FPB's key objectives in guiding those energy efficiency in guiding the development of this energy efficiency plan. And we use these objectives as guiding principles in designing the plan. FPB was interested in providing their customers options for lowering their energy bills. and that's what the energy efficiency plan offers. FPB also wanted programs that are cost-effective and that can demonstrate savings. FPB was also interested in programs that are well integrated with one another rather than distinct programs that don't interact. The FPB wanted to have a unified strategy for energy efficiency program. And we also heard that FPB was interested in knowing what options might be in the future for modifying the programs to adapt to changing market conditions. So those are all guiding principles that we integrated into our energy efficiency program plan. In terms of the timeline, this project started back in April. We've been here, we were here in May to conduct interviews with stakeholders and FPB staff, and we presented at the May board meeting. We came back at the July board meeting to present our initial recommendations for program selection and to hold a community meeting. And then we're back now to present our final report to the board. So next I'm going to go through an outline of the key components of the report. And the board should have received the report as part of the board package. We have also presented the report, the draft report, to many of the board members through a one-on-one conference call. So this outline should be familiar to a lot of you. So the report starts with a short executive summary, a 2-page summary that highlights the key findings and recommendations from the report. Then we go into presenting what other energy efficiency programs are offered in Kentucky and other Midwestern utilities, so that there's a point of comparison with what we're suggesting. We describe the stakeholder engagement process and what we heard from talking to the community and representative of different stakeholder groups. We present some of the energy efficiency opportunities that we see as being the main opportunities within FPB's territories, where most of the savings might be found. Then we go on to present what our recommendations, what are the 3 main options for implementing energy efficiency programs and what we recommend for FPB, and that's page 24. Then we move on to what are the programs that we recommend for an initial implementation phase, which we call the phase 1 implementation. And then we go into what we might recommend in terms of next steps if the board chooses to move forward with this. In appendix, there is the program option matrix that we presented at the July board meeting. And there's also what we called phase 1 program briefs that go into more details of what the programs we recommend, what are the key characteristics of those programs. And now I will pass it on to Jonan, who will go into our key findings and recommendations for program selection.
Great. Thank you. So this next section, we spent a good amount of time to really help you all understand, what else is going on in Kentucky? What are some of, what did we learn about Frankfort Plant Board and you all, and, what did we learn about the other Kentucky utilities? And so what we did see is that you've got some low rates, which is wonderful, but unfortunately, there is high usage. So, there's a lot of opportunity does exist to be able to reduce the energy consumption for the residents. So, show them ways to use energy less and also have more energy efficiency products. So the other thing that we spent some time with is just really understanding the Kentucky utility programs. And so from page 9 to about 16, we cover not only the Kentucky utility programs and what they're currently offering, obviously some of them by the investor-owned utilities and others by the co-ops, but then we also went into some Midwest utilities, municipal utilities. So you had some good comparisons to kind of be looking at for this. So Kentucky has 4 regulated utilities, 2 of which which is the Kentucky Power and the Duke Energy Kentucky no longer have energy efficiency programs. And basically, they're kind of on a pause with the Public Utility Commission because they want to look at making sure that these programs are cost effective. So, one of the great things about Kentucky is that we really do want to make sure we spend money efficiently, and so they want to go back and look at that. And so they've asked them to put it on pause. The other utilities, Kentucky Utility and Louisville Gas and Electric, they are running energy efficiency programs. They've had more programs in the past. Right now, they're running a low-income program, and they do three commercial, industrial, and institutional programs. And then the one residential program that they do still have is the demand response. We looked at, how are they delivering programs? They deliver through third-party implementer, so they've got someone else actually implementing, managing, administering the program for them. And they spend about $14 million a year on these programs. And that's what you see in large investor-owned utilities. They use rate increases to pay for these programs. It's part of kind of the way that they're able to get paid back for. Then you've got the East Kentucky Power Co-op is really the other major group that's doing energy efficiency programs in Kentucky, and that's a conglomerate of about 16 different co-ops in Kentucky that work through this power cooperative, East Kentucky, and they've got a good number of customers, 530,000 customers. They do run a low-income program. It's a good portfolio. They've got a decent amount of residential because for the most part in the co-op territory there are a significant amount of residential, more so than commercial, industrial, and institutional. But they do have 3 programs for that. They spend about $10 million on the program just alone, East Kentucky Power Corp. But it's a hybrid program, and what that means is that they're doing some of the programs for the 16 co-ops, but they're also asking them to do portions of the programs themselves. Like, for example, the co-op themselves is still supposed to review an application when the application for a rebate comes in. They do all their marketing themselves, the co-op individually, and they pay the incentive themselves. So that's called a hybrid, when you've got an entity, whether it be an outside consulting company or an outside program implementer, or you have an entity like a cooperative group. I don't think they're an actual joint action agency, but they're somewhat like that concept, running some of the programs for you. So the $10 million doesn't include these extra costs that each of those utilities are running. So they have a very large budget. They get approval through the PUC, and they are able to do this through some rate increases. So that's, hence why they have a pretty good sized budget.
Joanne, one quick question.
Sure.
On that. Do you have any feel for how many years each of these groups have been working on energy efficiency?
Yeah, I do think that KU is probably the longest. I thought they had said something about they've been doing it now since like 2009 or so. And they probably started pretty small back then. And then East Kentucky Power has definitely been multiple years. Not sure exactly when, but these are programs that have been in existence for a while.
Okay, thank you.
We did see a few other miscellaneous Kentucky programs. One was the How Smart Kentucky on-bill financing program, and that was kind of there was a one municipal utility, I think it's called Bendham, that was using that program. And what that is really just an on-bill financing option. It's created, there's a group in Kentucky that developed it. Some of the East Kentucky Power Co-ops, I think 6 of the 16 are also including that, as well as this one municipal utility.
I think that's the organization out of, it's called Mason.
Right.
And it was Benham is the town, the same town that has the coal history center.
Mm-hmm. So, and then the only other utility that's doing a little bit of something in Kentucky is that TVA has a few Kentucky municipal utilities and co-ops in their geography, and they offer this program that's an online audit that they offer to all of their their members. So that's a little bit of participation going on. But, there really was not any municipal utility that was, had its own portfolio of programs that was trying to really do this type of work for their customers and really try to help reduce energy, given how high usage is across Kentucky. I was surprised. We were surprised at that, but it was good to kind of get under that and better understand more about that. So then what we also did was we looked at the Midwest municipal utilities. So these were strictly utilities like yourselves, municipal utilities. They had been more the ones that are pretty active in an organization called the Midwest Energy Efficiency Alliance, MEA. And they've been running their programs, for a few years, different varying sizes and different approaches. And just, many of them run them in-house. So you've got Cedar Falls Utility in Iowa, which is a pretty progressive one. They've got 4 residential programs, 2 commercial, industrial. They run the programs in-house, and they've got really large budgets. I mean, one of the things that we're seeing is when you do decide to do the programs yourself and run them on your own, you have to come up with lots of different staff members, systems to do this. This is not something that can just be like, let's run energy efficiency programs and then tomorrow you're ready to go. So it does take a decent amount of infrastructure, and this is what they're spending kind of now on their annual budget. So I have to believe, and again, this was hard to get under. Their first year, they probably spent more because they had to set up this whole infrastructure. One of the things that I did see that was kind of similar, all of these utilities offered technical support for their larger commercial, industrial, and institutional users. They all offered advice, counsel, had folks that could answer questions, could do walkthrough audits, could help identify projects for their larger customers. That was clear. They all had a products program, both for their small customers, their residents, and their large customers. And a product rebate program is the program that you're just offering some incentives so that people can start to buy these energy efficient products, but get a little bit of money so that it offsets the cost, so that they're not always forced to just only look at the low cost because that's all they can afford. The utility helps them subsidize it. The other thing that we did see was that they also did not offer on residential audits, free residential audits. None of these utilities had offered any free residential audit. And I think we're seeing that by and large. Some of them had an online audit that they could have residents look at, but they were more focused on offering physical incentives for using energy efficiency products instead of just buying that lower cost non-efficient product. That seemed to be more of the approach that all the utilities were taking. So the other thing that I wanted to cover was just, the stakeholder interview. Juliet mentioned that, when we started this process in May, we came out and we had a chance to chat with each of the board members, with staff, residential representatives, obviously part of the government, institution, business, industrial, really 42 different groups and or folks that we got a chance to talk to. And it was really important to do that because this is for you. This is for your community. This is here as a utility to show that you care. You want to reduce your costs in total, but you're also trying to help drive lower costs for folks, people, and businesses that are in your community. And that's really the benefit and the value of energy efficiency programs. It tends to offer a lot of very positive customer relations. People feel really good about the utility when they know that, it's kind of counterintuitive. An electric utility helping me reduce costs? I mean, this is why it is so powerful. And this is why we believe energy efficiency programs came from the electric utilities, because it is such a positive customer service type of situation, as well as it really does help you save money, and it does help the utility in total save money. And we'll get into that in more detail. But by and large, through these interviews, and again, we spent a lot of time in the report kind of detailing it, and then last month we talked a lot about what the utilities, what we heard from each of these community members. But by and large, there was a clear desire that the energy efficiency options, affect all rate classes, that there's positive programs available for, all different types of classes, including renters. Education and outreach is important. Workforce training is needed, but more importantly, we've got to have something that will want to. We need to bring the demand in order to train a workforce. You can't have a trained workforce and then not the opportunity to do projects in energy efficiency. We also heard loud and clear that technical assistance to guide energy efficiency projects was necessary, that your larger customers, your medium-sized customers, they really don't have the expertise in-house to know which projects to pick, where they can get the most savings, how to sell this up to management. And so it is really important, to have technical support. We also saw that there are significant opportunities for your users. A lot of them maybe have done a project, they're trying some different things, but there's still lots and lots of opportunity to save money in energy efficiency. It's definitely not been something that you can say, oh, there's been so much done here, nothing is needed. There was clear amounts of energy efficiency that we learned. The area that if anyone spent some time on your commercial industrial customers is they've done a little bit of lighting upgrades, but when we started to talk about controls and some of the newer technology, there was clearly not a whole lot that was done. And then you've got a great community. People want to help the low-income and vulnerable populations. So there was clearly interest to figure out ways in which that could be part of the portfolio and looking for ways to, to make that even, something that they get, for free or as little cost as possible. To start with education, part of our project was to put together kind of a first educational piece for the residential customers. So this will be available on the website. I'm not sure when. It would be probably up to you, but we did bring some copies that you're welcome, to take a copy of. But it's really just to kind of start with, how do you can control lowering your bill. Here's 12 tips that you can start with today to kind of help you lower your bill. And it's a great start, and it talks about, showing people that you really are spending a good amount of money on your energy, and you've got to own this, and you've got to help get this under control. So next I wanted to just kind of talk a little bit more about, these recommendations. So trying to make sure that we took into account the goals that we heard on what an energy efficiency plan should look like, and also what we heard from the different stakeholders. We felt that, you've got to start somewhere, and so we came up with a phase 1 program recommendations. We looked at, part of our key findings when we looked at what other utilities are doing, what seems to be cost effective, where do people tend to start, and that's how we came up with the phase 1 program recommendations. And then for the final report, what we did was in the appendix, we created a program brief on each one of these different choices. And the program brief really takes it more detail about how much savings you'll get in the program, about how many users, so that you can really better understand what you'll get out of the phase 1 program. And obviously education is going to be part of it, community outreach. We still feel there's a significant opportunity for at least a few more years with LED light bulb discounts. So we're proposing a program offered at a local store that they can offer them, at a very discounted rate to kind of get people to buy some volumes of these and install volumes. There's energy efficiency kits that can be given out to low-income customers through food pantries and community action agencies. Another program that, most of I would say all of the municipal utilities and co-ops are using is an appliance recycling program to promote early retirement of inefficient appliances. I mean, there's so many people that have that extra freezer or refrigerator even in their garage that they keep plugged in all the time, and yet when you look at it, there's some beers in there, always, maybe some sodas. And then for Thanksgiving and Christmas, they shove a few more things in there. But by and large, they don't really need it. And by offering them a little money and someone to take it away from them and recycle all the pieces, you do get a really good savings opportunity when you can recycle the existing appliances. And these are all for residential at this point. We're also recommending some sort of online product store. You know, there's other products that can be offered very easily through an online portal. Plus, there's people that mostly shop that way. So you're trying to broaden this as much as you can and meet people where they are. And if they're online shoppers, you got to give them some choices. If they're in-person shoppers, you give them choices that way. Prescriptive rebates, this is the one that really, most people expect this, both small businesses, residential, and commercial customers, to get a discount, basically, or an incentive for purchasing a energy efficiency product over a non-energy efficient product so that you can kind of offset the cost. And then energy advising and technical assistance. Again, we heard that loud and clear that in some of the larger customers, it's not even that they don't have the money to do this. It's more that they don't have the time, they don't have the knowledge, they don't have the resources to identify projects and then help pitch that to management. Paybacks often on projects are, a few years or 1 year. There's a lot of low-hanging fruit out there, and so this is a great way to get them into not only this year's plan, but in the full long-term capital plans. And then custom incentives, which are really important to kind of sit with your larger customers and say, okay, that product is not on our list, but yes, we know it's going to save X amount of money, so let's work out a way to give you an incentive because you're reducing that project will reduce your cost by 20%, so let's help incent you that way. So it's just a different way to provide an incentive instead of on a per product basis. It's on a per product basis, it's on a per project basis. So what we did was, again, to summarize these Phase 1 program portfolio expectations, we wanted to kind of talk about just how relative these are to each other. Of course, when you're doing community outreach and education, you're going to see a lot of participation, but there's no savings in that. This is kind of like what we call the umbrella program to kind of get folks to better understand what energy efficiency is and how do you get involved in this and what are some of the program offerings that we have, and it just kind of gets people excited. I've seen a community do raffles and get people to come to a meeting to learn about this and then raffle off an energy efficiency kit so that you can just get people to feel like they're learning and it's fun and it's exciting. And then light bulb discounts, you'll see very high participation in that. The savings are moderate to high, and then the cost effectiveness is really high for that one. So you get a lot of savings per cost for that. Low income customers, again, most people will determine an amount that they want to put into that. Again, it's low relative to the size of the population. So sometimes you'll see low, and that doesn't mean that it's low in that population, it's low in the entire population of FPB. So that's low from that perspective, which then also gives you lower savings, but that's a very high cost-effective approach to do those. Appliance recycling, again, there's not that many people in an FPB territory that have appliances that they're ready to recycle today, but over the course of time, you'll see a lot of participation in that. But again, that's another high cost moderate cost effectiveness, and per appliance recycling, you do get a good amount of savings. So this chart is a little difficult because low comes up a lot, but the low is looking at the whole population and the whole portfolio in a given year. So, for energy advising and technical assistance, again, this is one that you'll find that a good portion of your customers that can take advantage of that will. But again, in the scheme of things, when you've got, 100 industrial customers versus your population of 400 users, it's a small population. So we wanted to just kind of give some perspectives to, where this fits in terms of just participation, savings, and cost effectiveness. And so there were definitely other programs. So when we put together last time when we met with you all, we had this program options matrix that had about 25 to 30 different program choices that we had evaluated for you all to decide, what really meets what the customers are asking and what are the goals of a program. And so these were some that they didn't jump out for the first cut, but they might be some things that you want to consider down the road as you start to build momentum from doing energy efficiency. And smart thermostats are definitely an area that we're seeing more and more. It's a way to do, demand response. It's a way to save energy on both heating and cooling, and you all definitely could benefit from that because you have both heating and cooling. The residential online audit is growing significantly. You have a free online audit available on the website today, but there are some ones that have come a long way in terms of user friendliness and just they give you more information back on ways in which this will help you specifically. And then another area that's really growing is just conservation and behavior programs, so that you're looking at not, in addition to having actual products that are energy efficient, working on helping people change their behavior, through giving them some different messaging. The other thing on the, is that they're really, for residents especially, if you ever decided to get into some sort of audit type of program, you'd need to have a complementary low interest financing program, because many of those projects are rather expensive, and so that will come out of that'll really change the savings. So you need to have a way to really reduce the overall the amount of money that the customer needs to spend, day one. So some sort of financing, whether it be on bill or separate, would need to be part of that. So these are just some of the examples. Obviously, we should be, looking again at EPAD to see how that might fit into the district. And I know the Louisville is also another town that has that, and they're starting to use that, so we can kind of watch them. So I'm going to bring Juliet back, and she's going to talk a little bit more about the implementation options.
So there are really three options for implementing energy efficiency programs. The first one would be for FPB to implement in-house and do everything by yourself. The second option would be to hire a third-party outside implementer to implement the energy efficiency programs. And the third, as Jonan mentioned earlier, would be to have a hybrid approach where some of the programs are implemented in-house and others are implemented by a third-party implementer. And within the hiring a third-party implementer, there are really two sub-options. One would be to hire an implementer that implements programs elsewhere and just to join existing programs. And the other option would be to hire someone to implement programs that are only offered in FPB's territory, so just custom programs for FPB. So our recommendation is to hire an outside implementer that already implements programs in other areas. And the reasons for that is that that option really offers a lot of benefits. The main benefit here is that there are very big economies of scale from joining existing programs, so the cost for the efficiency programs will be much lower. So you'll be able to achieve more energy savings per dollar that is spent on the energy efficiency programs. Hiring a third-party implementer would also mean that there would be limited additional demands on FPB's staff and limited need to hire additional staff. There's also lower risk because those programs have already been implemented in other places. All the wrinkles have been ironed out, and there's just no risk that something will go wrong compared to starting a new program from scratch. And also the outside implementer may offer additional services. In addition to implementing the services, they might publish articles in newsletters that are read by the local industries, or offer a database management software that you could just use without having to create your own. There are some drawbacks compared to implementing in-house. One of them is that you have less control over the details of implementation. The implementation details would really be decided by the third-party implementer. And there's also less knowledge less knowledge about energy efficiency that will be built within FPB. If you implement in-house, there would just be more in-house knowledge about energy efficiency. So that we go into details in terms of those three options and the plus and minuses of all three options in the report on page 24 to 27. But our recommendation really is to go to hire an outside implementer and to do that through an RFP process. And we believe that the benefits of doing that really outweigh the drawbacks. So now we'll switch a little bit to what the estimated cost and savings would be for the energy efficiency programs. Without knowing the details of what the program implementers will be offering, we can only provide an estimated range of cost, savings, and what that cost would be per kilowatt hour saved. But our estimation is that FPB will be investing somewhere between $300,000 to $1 million a year for energy efficiency programs, which would result in savings of about 1,700 to 5,000 megawatt hours, which is roughly equivalent to about 6 cents to 15 cents per kilowatt hours of energy saved. And if you think of energy efficiency as another source of supply for electricity, this would mean that the cost of procuring electricity through energy efficiency would be much lower than what FPB would be getting at wholesale. So that's a really important point, is that through investment in energy efficiency, you will be getting electricity at a much lower cost than you could by purchasing it at wholesale. And then other important point here is that over the life of the efficiency measures that will be installed through the programs, the monetary benefits are expected to be 2 to 2.5 times greater than what it would cost FPB and the customers to implement those programs. So the two important points here that I really want to highlight is that the supply of electricity through efficiency is much cheaper than buying it at wholesale, and you will see more benefits than it will cost. And I want to go a little more into the benefits here. So this graph presents 10 years of program implementation, and on the vertical axis, you have the dollars that will be saved on the customer electric bills. So we're estimating that FPB's customer base will see bill savings in the range of $160,000 to $470,000. That's for all FPB customers that implement energy efficiency measures, residential customers all aggregated. And the important fact here is that the savings that occur in year 1 of program implementation don't disappear on year 2. If you install a light bulb 1 year, on the second year, the third year, the fourth year, your light bulb is still there saving electricity. So the bill savings that FPB's customer base will see increase over time. With every additional year of program implementation, the customer base will see more savings. And expanding a little bit on this, the The red bars here represent the customer bill savings, so it's the same as what I showed on the previous slide. The blue lines represent the error bar, so the range that those savings would be, as it will vary depending on the program implementation approach that FPB chooses. And the yellow line here, hopefully you can see it on the slide, but the yellow line shows the program costs. So really the important point here is that if you implement programs for 10 years, those programs, and we're assuming the program costs remain the same, the customer bill savings will really quickly be greater than what the program costs. So really the important point here is that customers will see much greater utility bill savings than the program costs. The benefits are greater than the cost of the program. So now we'd like to go a little bit more into what would be our recommended next steps to move forward with energy efficiency, and those are detailed in the report on page 37. But our recommendations would be at this board meeting to accept the final report that we presented to you today, and to decide to pursue the recommended energy efficiency program plans, because the benefits to your customer base really outweigh the costs that the programs would have, and it's really a cheaper source of supply for FPB. So our recommendations would be to move forward with this, and also to explore and learn more about what it would cost FPB to go forward with implementing with a third-party implementer. So that would not require any commitment from FPB at the board at this point. But if FPB were to issue an RFP to third-party implementer to request proposals for implementing energy efficiency programs, that would let you find out more about what it would cost to implement those programs and have a better idea of where you might want to go with this. So recommendations would be at this board meeting to decide to move forward with energy efficiency, and then further down the line, or whenever the schedule is right, to develop and issue an RFP for the implementation of the phase 1 programs that we recommend, while allowing respondents to the RFP to offer additional programs if they wish to, but asking to have at least the phase 1 programs in the proposal. And then when you get responses to the RFP, which we would estimate would be towards the end of the year in January, then you could review those proposals, and then you'd have a better sense of how much it would cost to implement energy efficiency programs. And once you have that estimate in hand, you can decide then whether you want to go with a third-party implementer, or if you don't like any of the proposals, you can still decide to implement in-house at that point. And once you've decided which approach you want to do, which would probably be at the beginning of 2019, then you could allocate budgets for energy efficiency in the budget, allocate an amount for energy efficiency in the budget. So this is a suggested schedule. We recognize that it might vary depending on the number of external or internal factors, but this is what we would recommend in terms of guidance for moving forward with energy efficiency. So with that, we'd like to open it up to questions and discussions, if there are any.
So we should start with the board, if you've got any. We can go back to slides. We know we did this kind of quick, but we're happy to go deeper in any area that you want.
And I don't remember which slide it was, but when you were talking about cost and benefits, keep going, I think one more. Okay, when you have the estimated annual program costs at $300,000 to $1 million, and then you switch to the kilowatt hour and the megawatt hour, can you put that hourly, put that into dollars and cents instead of just in the way you have it there?
And that's what we did for the next slide here. So the annual customer bill savings, We're based on the average retail rates for all FPB's customers. We don't have them both on the same slide, but for that annual program costs, we're estimated that the annual customer bill savings would be somewhere around $160,000 to $470,000. But this does not include the monetary benefits to FPB that are directly resulting from having to purchase less electricity. So FPB will have avoided costs from not having to purchase that electricity. There'd be wholesale costs that are avoided. There'd be distribution, transmission costs, and probably demand costs that are reduced due to not having to purchase that electricity from the wholesale market. And those avoided costs are really hard to calculate directly from the information we have in hand now, but they're not included in this number. Those numbers here are just the customer savings, not FPB's savings. Did I lose you?
No, that's all right.
I mean, the big benefit is that, pretty much the general terminology is that, for every dollar spent, you save $2.50. So that's how much cheaper energy efficiency is over, using electricity. So it is the cheapest, most cost-effective resource out there is not using the energy. And so even though you're paying money for a program, you're still going to then save, pretty much 2.5 times more is the average. And, and you'd be close to that. I mean, and you might even be better than that because there hasn't been energy efficiency really done in this area much. There's been a little. And so there's still some really low cost energy efficiency to get in your geographic service area. So you would really benefit from this, or your customers would, as well as FPB.
Thank you.
Okay. I guess if there are no other comments from the board at this time, we could go on to customer questions or questions from the audience. Joel?
Hi, I'm Joel Fisher. I'm a residential customer. EPAD has been passed by ordinance by the city, and the county is reading it as well. So it will probably pass by the county in the next couple months. The other thing I'd say is, I think if FPB goes ahead with this, there are other partners that haven't been discussed. If you shop for an appliance on Lowe's website right now, here, it will populate with the rebates that are available from Shelby County RECC and from LG&E. So it won't only be FPB doing the outreach, commercial partners will also be doing the outreach. I think, again, for the community as a whole, financing is a big issue, whether it's on bill, whether it's EPAD residential or whatever the alternatives are. We've got people with older HVAC systems, as you say, big upfront costs that are an issue. So yes, low-hanging fruit is great and energy saving is great, but in terms of kind of real infrastructure stuff for residential, not only commercial folks, we could all be looking at some big upfront costs if we wanted to be as close to efficient as possible and comfortable in our homes. I think that's the other element of this that we don't talk about is many of these improvements make life more comfortable in your home or in your workspace. The HVAC works better, you spend less money, it's more efficient. It's a nice cycle of benefits. It's not just dollars and cents. It's your living space where you spend, 8 to 12 hours of your day at home or sleeping or whatever. So there are many elements that tie into this, and I'm encouraged that we're having this discussion.
And we felt the need to have you have to get started somewhere, and that's what phase 1 is about, because you need to build momentum and you need to start to know that if you spend the time, developing the financing option, which is not not the simplest thing, as I'm sure, you've heard before, that the people will come, that you will have interest in this thing. And that's why when you do something like this, you do want to start with things that are just really easy and just get people excited, and then you just grow and expand on that.
If I could just add one more thing, the gas company does do walkthrough basic audits. It's not a very high technical proficiency, but they do point out things like LEDs, ceiling manuals, and stuff like that. And I think their expertise varies with I think it's an outside party that does it, because I've had 2 different guys do it over the space of 10 years, and it seemed to be different approaches. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Marty, did you want to go ahead?
Yes, I'm Marty Booth. I'm an elected public official. And I wanted to know if I understand that it is in the mission of the Frankfort Electric and Water Plant Board to provide service at the lowest cost. But if it is a lower cost, does that mean that the money that Frankfort Plant Board has to run its organization, is that lower too? Do you understand what I'm saying?
So you're asking if our administrative cost is lower?
No, I'm asking if you get less money for the product, you get less money for the administration of the organization that provides that product. I'm just curious. It just seems that will people have to be laid off or more people hired?
Well, to back up a little bit, it's been our long-term goal for a while, so there haven't been any changes in that. And I don't foresee any in the future, from...
Well, I guess I'm just asking how the Frankfort Plant Board makes money. I mean, they have to make money in order to exist.
Right.
They have to bring in income.
Yep, we do that. And we went through our budget, for the last year, and then also our budget for August. So we do make enough to cover our expenses. And we have a statement of net position.
I guess if I can take a run at it, maybe you guys could jump in as well. There will be multiple impacts. There'll certainly be an impact to revenues, but there'll also be an impact to costs, right? And so it'll potentially broaden our margins, but it will also potentially bring our revenues down some too. And those things in concert are a net plus to the operation of the agency. Would you guys like to add anything?
A net plus.
Yeah. Having less energy, having to buy less energy on the wholesale market doesn't change people's jobs at all. It doesn't reduce any infrastructure needs. It just helps you reduce your costs for the most part. Because you're not really, like if you're putting in if you're paying X and you're now paying a little smaller number, that doesn't change anyone's workload. I mean, maybe you all don't envision buying a little less energy changing any of your workloads.
Well, I guess we could add to that our goal is to reduce our total energy consumption by 0.5% to 1%.
Right.
So it's a small
like 0.5% a year would be a really good, realistic amount. And so, so it brings it down, but it's not that anyone's workload is changing because of this.
Maybe the word to keep in mind is efficiency. We're trying to operate more efficiently.
Right.
Do more with less.
Right.
And I wanted to add as well that efficiency can be seen as an investment. So there's an upfront cost, but in the long term, it saves money. So it's an investment, really.
It saves money for the customers.
It saves definitely, and for the utility.
And for the utility.
Go ahead, please.
Hi, my name is Lee Colton. I'm retired as of June 30 from the state. I used to be the assistant director for the Efficiency and Conservation Division just up the hill here with the Energy and Environment Cabinet. So a big part of my job was keeping track of energy efficiency programs run by the state as well as utilities across the state. I guess a couple of things I'd like to encourage you to think about, and I don't know what conversations have come before this, so I don't want to insult anybody's intelligence, but efficiency programs are not new, they're not by and large risky. They're tried and true across the nation for the last decade. And to build on your comment, KU's been doing their program since early 2000s, so they've been around quite a while.
Yeah, even longer.
But there's a number of reasons why a utility like Frankfort Plant Board might consider doing efficiency programs. Some people propose it for climate change reasons or environmental reasons. Some utilities do it for PR. KU and LG&E do it. They have some economic benefits from it, but they get a lot of good glow out of it as well. A lot of utilities do that, especially the co-op. It's good customer relations. There's no question about that. The real thing boils down to what's everybody's mind, especially administrators like yourself, is the cost benefit, which is what we've been discussing here. And you don't know what that cost benefit equation is until you really do the analysis. There are very formal tests for doing that. Some of them look at it from a customer perspective. Some of them do those tests based on a utility perspective, total resource costs. There's half dozen or more different types of tests that look at different aspects of how it impacts the utility and its customer base. So that's something to consider. Each one of you can look at it on a portfolio level, all of the programs collectively, or each individual program separately. What typically is done is you look at it perhaps program by program, and you come up with a hard number of what you're going to get for it and what the resource cost is. And then you can look at it as a holistic because, for example, low-income programs typically cost more, but some of the other programs cost less, and so they weigh each other out. So you blend them together, come up with a good portfolio of programs that makes sense for your utility. No, there's not a question.
And that was the approach we tried to take with the phase one, was making sure that we had a good, cost-effective portfolio to start with, because you want this to be very positive and you want to see savings as quick as you possibly can. And so that was really the approach we knew was important to take. And that's where usually utilities start. I mean, this isn't, like you said, this is tried and true stuff.
The other thing I would mention is that there's a lot of focus on rates. Rates are important for customers, but with a program like this, you may have high usage and high rates, or low rates even. But if your bill is high, what good is that? So efficiency programs help people, give them tools and resources to lower their bill, whatever those rates happen to be. So there's a distinction between rates and bills. That's important to consider. The other thing I would ask you to consider is demand response versus energy efficiency. Most of the programs that they've alluded here appear to be energy efficiency. Some of them, and the distinction on that is efficiency programs tend to lower the overall usage across the daytime usage, the curve through the day. Demand response programs focus on that peak in the highest time during the winter or summer, whatever that might be. So, there's different incentives for that, and there's different cost-benefit equation for that. I know in the past, Frankfort Plant Board, about 40 to 45% of your retail costs have been for demand charges to KU. Well, that's a big part of your bill. So getting at that peak, lowering it, programs that get at that and lower it would be a huge benefit to the utility. That's in partial answer to your question.
Yeah, thank you.
So anyway, the programs that maximize that would certainly be, I think, advantageous. So, but I think it's important to just look at the holistic picture and think about that cost benefit. The last point I'll make is in terms of objectives, has to do with reliability. The three other objectives I mentioned are the most common, but the up-and-coming objective has to do with reliability because as we get more solar and wind on the grid, that becomes more variable depending on the weather and conditions, right? Efficiency programs or demand response programs can help buffer that. And that's the way a lot of utilities are using efficiency and demand response programs to bank or shift load to accommodate those more variable generation assets that are on the grid.
Thank you, Lee.
Great comments. Yeah.
Yes, very good comments. And I think One thing that ties into that, not directly to this, is going to AMI, or Automated Meeting Infrastructure. And that would be when we could actually quantify some of the things you're talking about. So it's good.
And I wanted just to add that there's a little discussion in the final report on the cost effectiveness and the different tests that can be used. So if you're interested in finding out more, if you go to page 9 of the report, you'll find more information on that.
I mean, it's not the simplest concept. So, this is, we're happy to explain it even more if you want any more details, because, the fact that you're saving and the savings build on each other, and this, it's just such a longer term savings. Once you do one change, one light bulb change, explodes out to savings for 10 years that just compound upon each other. So that's why it really does save so much more money, and it is the most efficient, most cost-effective way to get energy by not using energy.
Andy McDonald maybe has some comments.
Andy McDonald, I appreciate the direction the plant board's going with this and the report that you've done. A comment, I would like to see some more attention given to weatherization and programs that can affect the building envelope, particularly attic insulation and tightening up the building envelope. I think they can have a really significant impact for making homes more comfortable, as well as reducing the cost of living in a home. And particularly for the low-income residents, those are especially important. Hopefully, within the rebate section of your phase 1, you might be able to provide incentives for insulation as well as appliances, and hopefully more efficient HVAC appliances would be included within there.
Okay, so good points. Okay.
Yeah, and we thought there might be some questions about energy audits. So we just put 2 slides together to explain why we didn't include.
I mean, we did hear that people would love audits. So loud and clear, the residents said, audits, audits, audits. But there's reasons why, as we shared with you, those municipal utilities that are running programs don't have an audit program. And so we wanted to just kind of get under that a little bit more as something that you might want to consider more future, just not in phase 1. And here are some of the reasons.
So yeah, we heard from the community that there would be an interest in audits. But one thing with audits and weatherization in general, if you just do an audit, there's just no guarantee that someone will move forward from an audit and actually do work on the home, because there's it's costly to do home improvements. So we've seen that in programs that do offer incentives for doing home improvements, there's only about 30 to 40% of people who get an audit that do go forward and do work on their homes. And of those 30 to 40%, it's only when there are actually pretty significant incentives available. If you offer an audit without offering a program, it's likely that very few people will move forward with actually doing the work. So it's really hard to know what kind of energy savings you might get from just doing audits. And because we wanted, in phase 1 programs, we wanted to make sure to have programs that can demonstrate success and demonstrate savings, that we did not think that an audit would be a good program for phase 1. And typically there's very low participation in those programs. That unfortunately the value doesn't show on the graph here in yellow, but this is the participation in East Kentucky Power Co-op
in 2016.
Yeah, energy efficiency programs. So they saw 161 audits, and that was for 530,000 customers. So if you scaled that to FPB's size, this would be equivalent to about 6 audits per year. So there's often really low participation in these programs. When FPB has offered that program in the past, they've only had about 12 people that take advantage of the program. So again, as a phase 1 program, you want to make sure you can demonstrate that there's an interest in the programs, and that's what we thought audits might not be the best for this phase one. It's also usually not very helpful for renters, and half of FPB's populations are renters, because it's really hard for a renter to get their landlord to do efficiency work on their house that will then reduce their own bills. So there's that split incentive between the landlord and the renter. And it's also, for low-income customers, unless you offer really significant incentives or a financing program, they can't really go from the audit to doing significant work on their house, because they might not have the cash on hand to finance those upgrades. And the last reason why we didn't do it is that compared to other programs such as lighting or appliances or prescriptive rebates, appliance replacement, their audit and weatherization programs are much more expensive per kilowatt hours of electricity saved. They usually cost about twice as much to get energy efficiency savings from those programs. So we thought as a phase one program, it was important to start with programs that were really cost effective to really demonstrate the value of energy efficiency. But we thought that in the absence of a residential audit or weatherization programs, there are still options for FPB's customers to do work on their homes. There's an online tool that is currently on FPB's website, but there are also other tools that are available on the marketplace that might be more user-friendly or offer different features that customers can go to. And what FPB could do also is link to resources that list what customers might be available in the area that can offer. Contractors in the area that can offer high quality audits and audits that are targeted at improving the energy efficiency of a building. And we, in our list of future program recommendations, we list residential energy audits as one of the options. But we think that the conditions need to be right before FPB offers those programs. So there needs to be some kind of incentive program or loan program that goes along with an audit program to make sure that more customers move forward with the recommendations. Just doing an audit on its own will not take you there. So for that, we need to make sure there's an interest in the community in energy efficiency so that the FPB can have the budget to offer that kind of program, because they tend to be more expensive. And another thing that should be considered is partnering with other organizations that might help implement those programs. So like the gas utility and partnering with the programs they're offering, the low-income weatherization programs, so the community action plan, action partnership agencies in the area. So there is a time and a place when energy audits would be a good option for FPB, but we think that in that phase one initial program, it would not be the best fit. So hopefully that starts answering your comment and your question.
I like the aspect that you brought out there, which was to have possibly something on our website that would, people who want to dive into that, where they could go to find a contractor that could look at what energy efficiency things they could do to their home.
And that could be part of the education and outreach piece of the programs.
I mean, the audit itself normally is not that expensive. Once you have enough contractors out there, it becomes more competitive, and then, it really isn't the most expensive part of figuring out what you need from an energy efficiency. It's all the products you've got to then bring in or insulation, and that's where it really adds up.
Right.
So
and I think
that's why that loan is just really important to have as a complementary to get people to really.
And that ties into what Joel was saying about the cost of getting to that.
Yeah.
I had a question. You mentioned page 9, and I'd highlighted it here. Yeah. You talk about lighting savings often, comprise a large portion of many energy efficiency portfolios, but that lighting savings may likely decline in 2020 2020 and 2021 when new lighting federal standards are fully implemented.
Yeah.
Would you mind to elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, so you want me to start?
Yeah, go.
So the EPA, which is the government, EPA has been, every year or every few years really trying to put more standards in place for lighting so that the manufacturers really only produce lighting that is a certain level of energy efficiency. And so there's a new standard that's expected to get announced in the next year or so that would then really reduce the number of lighting that is available today to be able to be used in energy efficiency programs, because it'll become more of a market transformation effect, and then it's just standard. And so that is anticipated prior to the current president situation, when the EPA was kind of running down that path. That was a pretty definite, was definitely going to happen. And now there's a lot more uncertainty around that. So we, number one, don't know when that will happen. But number two, every time something like that does happen, even more stricter standards end up coming out. And so more products come out to still continue to meet that demand, to meet the demand of having more efficient lighting. I mean, one of the things that we learned in some studies that we did was that LED light bulbs at the, and then there's different levels of LED light bulbs, have been very much one of the key energy efficiency products that have helped out in the peak demand issue as peak starts to move more towards like the evening hours. So like you probably have heard of like California, for example. Their peak is now from like 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. And so thank God that we did all that LED lighting way back, 4 years ago, because it could be so much worse if they didn't have LEDs during that, because everyone comes home, it starts to get dark, you turn your lights on, and so they're seeing it. I think it's not even until 7. I think actually their peak is going to like 8 or 9. So it's definitely dark, and it's still they're still experiencing peak. So I think any portfolio, when you go out to RFP, you want, these are questions that you would want to ask. What are the questions would be? Why don't you explain how the programs would change if the lighting standards ended up coming into effect? What other programs would you look at? And one of the things that we're seeing some of the larger utilities starting to look at is these behavior programs. So that's what a lot of people are thinking are going to take the place of some of the savings at residential, for the fact that lighting standards will eventually, reduce the amount of savings you can get from lighting. But I mean, these are things that the great thing is the market has been thinking about this for a long time. They've been expecting this lighting to happen, and they have been thinking of other programs and other ideas that will replace that, or at least help to reduce the amount of savings lost from that.
Are you saying that if the lighting standard goes into effect, people won't have the option to buy less efficient bulbs, and therefore there's no reason to give them an incentive?
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
So people will
there won't be a choice. Yeah, it will be very hard to find non-LED type bulbs out there in the market, and then that should bring the cost down. So, because when that's what you have, and the competition go up. But there's LED lights that are Energy Star certified, and then there's kind of knockoffs still out there, and you really don't get the benefit from the knockoffs as you do the true Energy Star. So there's some misperceptions out there on lighting right now, that people think an LED is an LED, and it's not. So from a savings perspective, you got to look for one that has an Energy Star label, not just a knockoff LED.
So are you saying that the next RFP that we would do would be the consultant that would answer those kinds of questions about the...
Well, they would implement. They would actually be the ones that would develop, so we've developed the plan, mm-hmm. and they would actually implement the plan. So they would give you all the costs and everything that it's going to take to actually start to run these programs, so that, you can submit an application for a rebate, and you can start to get the money back for the energy efficient product you purchase. So this is the boots on the ground. Let's let's get the programs moving.
So they would run down the question, like one of your pros on the light bulbs was what I'm gonna call leakage. You may have called it leakage,
Right.
where if Lowe's sold the lights, but Anderson County folks, the adjoining county, purchased the lights, then they're really eating up some of our investment in the program.
And that's something the program implementer
Right.
would figure
That's
out.
what I'm saying.
How to account for this. That's something that the program implementer should account for.
And honestly, some of those places already have like deep national discounts on lighting. So, where you might benefit more is by working with a local hardware store in Frankfort or, a grocery store, someone that's currently selling light bulbs and giving that business an opportunity to grow by these energy efficient light bulbs. So trying to kind of push more local, get more people to the local Frankfort companies. And that's what we've seen happen in some of the programs that we run.
So we're talking about maybe looking at RFPs that are the phase 1 suggestions that you made. Can you go back to that slide?
Sure. Do you want the slide on
This
what
one?
the programs are? or-
Right, yeah,
Sure.
the different programs that you're actually recommending we try out as.
So why are you doing that? Let me ask the other question. One of the slides had, I think one of the first slides, you talked about doing an RFP or doing it yourself or doing a hybrid.
Right, the in-house versus the implementer versus the hybrid.
So some of those things we could, if we wanted to, do ourselves or try to do.
But I think you'd want to know what if you were to hire a third-party implementer, what would that cost and what kind of savings would you expect? So you can compare what it would be if you were doing it in-house to what if.
Well, yeah, I agree with you, but I guess where I was going with it, I'm looking at the spreadsheet that you gave us, all the
different
pretty much all of
choices,
the
like
things you
whatever's
had.
out there, yeah.
But before, if we went out to an RFP, but if we did go out to an RFP, that we should, the staff should sit down and look at this sheet and kind of determine what they see as the viable things that we might be able to do. Because we can't do everything on the sheets, every item on all these sheets.
Right, that's why they have recommended a phase 1.
Right, so we did that. We sat down with Vent and Travis and we said,
So every one of the phase 1 things are things that we
went
think
through
we
that
can
whole,
do.
yeah.
Well, no,
Yeah,
no. That's my question was, are there things in the phase 1 that we might be able to do in-house? I'm not asking for an answer right now. And because to reduce, if we went out to an RFP, reduce what we would need done from an outside entity, thus reducing the cost of that particular contract.
See, and our logic and our experience, and it's not logic, it's experience, is that the more you try to do in-house, you have to spend lots and lots of money up front because you have to build this infrastructure. You don't have a system that gives out, that pays back rebates and incentives. You don't have a system that tracks savings. So these are all the things that an implementer, a third-party implementer, brings to the equation that they provide you on a silver platter, that you get to use, and you don't have to build it yourself. So what we've seen is that the lowest cost solution that gives you the most value in terms of the number of choices so that it serves all your ratepayers and gives you the biggest bang for your buck is when you bring in a third-party implementer, because they've already invested in this whole infrastructure to do all this. Because this isn't simple. This isn't normal business stuff. This is special programs, special IT systems, rebates, forms, a lot of website work, and they have all this automated, and that's why we thought.
But I agree. I understand it's not simple, but I'm looking at how to minimize some of the costs if we do that, because just the rebate, just the light bulbs, as I said the last time, the people who would normally benefit the most out of those things aren't going to be filling out rebate sheets and aren't probably out there looking at the LED bulb when they're looking for a light bulb. They're just looking for whatever the cheapest is without that thought and without the ability to advance the money and pay for the difference in the price. So I agree with all of these
Yeah, that's
things,
good.
but my point here is that if, at least my vote, if anything is to spend money to help the ratepayers, it's going to help the ones that really, really need the help. And the rebate thing is something I'm going to do. I'm going to cut the coupon. I'm going to take the rebate sheet, and I'm going to do all those things because I have the latitude and the opportunity to do those things. Some people aren't even mentally there because of their finances to go there in that process. So that's
No, those are great points. I mean, we have automated this whole LED in-store program so that you actually just go in, you buy the light bulb, you pay. Many of them just charge $1 per Energy Star LED bulb because they buy like if it's an implementer, they buy at like this massive discount so that they can really, get it down to such a reduced cost. And so it's $1. And so we have seen low-income families go in and buy because, what light bulb costs $1 these days? Not even the old ones are even $1. So we are seeing more of that because, again, you don't want to do a rebate for a light bulb. You want to have an instant, be able to just pay $1 and get your light bulb. So that works that way. Did you want to expand on that?
And I wanted to go back to your point about what programs you could do in-house to save on costs. And I want to reiterate that you will see the greatest cost savings by going with an implementer that implements in many other places, so they have economies of scale. If you bring something in-house, it's likely to cost you more than you would for somebody who's implementing over a really large area, because they have that economies of scale. They can buy those light bulbs in large quantities, so they can offer them at a discount. So anything you bring in-house, there's a good chance it would cost you more than if you were to hire someone who works in a larger area.
You have some thought about what that type of person would cost?
It's not a person.
I mean, not a person. It's an entity.
So we put So I think when we started to look at it based upon, because a lot of them look at the size, so how many customers you have. That's kind of how they figure out how much to charge you for a program. So like a portfolio that we put together, this phase one, which has those residential, the commercial. From the size company that you are, the size utility that you are, we would think it would be probably somewhere between $350,000 to, if you did it in house, like $1 million. But if you brought a third party in, I would say you'll get estimates somewhere between $325,000 to $500,000.
So that's an annual cost?
That's an annual cost. Okay. And they will want a commitment of more than a year. Okay. They'll want like at least 3. Some of them probably want 4 because there's an investment that they're going to make here. Mm-hmm. And they want to know, and savings doesn't happen instantaneously. It's going to take getting to get in on projects and getting people to put it in their capital expenditures. People, things will have to, it's not an instantaneous thing. It needs to happen over some years. But you can usually count on about, 0.5% a year savings and, for that kind of money. And that's what we've seen. You still might get proposals that are $1 million. You might find someone that can come up with something cheaper than that, but just to estimate that. And then you can look at, well, what would it take if we hired all these people and we built, this infrastructure?
No, I'm not for that. I wasn't really thinking about that big.
Or you could just say, you know what, that's too much money, even though when you look at $350,000 out of how much you spend on energy is.
Yeah, on wholesale, I think you purchase wholesale power for about $53 million. So $500,000 for energy efficiency programs, about 1% of what FPB spends on the wholesale power at wholesale. So it's a really small portion.
Small percent.
So how, in your opinion, how are public utilities paid for these programs?
So I think it depends. So I think some of them use their, it's part of customer service. There's others that sometimes get extra money from other things that they hadn't, anticipated, or they have, so they do that. And then sometimes there is a small, increase in the rate, or an extra line item on it to do that. It really depends on how big you want to get. I don't think when we're dealing with this type of of amount in a phase one that this would be any sort of a focus on a rate increase. I mean, the investor-owned utilities, the regulated utilities, that's just part of the deal. They get the PUC to approve this. I want to do a rate increase, go ahead, do the rate increase.
And just as an aside, early in the meeting, we talked about surplus money from the proceeds from the surplus money, which was $30,000. Those are kinds of monies we can use to do some of these types of programs with, just to kind of keep that
absolutely
in your mind, back of your mind. Because I'm not sure how much it was the month before, but it was $30,000 this month, and I'm not sure.
The number that I said, that's a year-to-date number.
Oh, it's the year-to-date. Okay, $30,000 year-to-date. So that's cash that's there that could be utilized to do something like this.
Okay. I think we had one other question. Did you have a question?
Oh, I've forgotten what the question was.
Oh, no. Well, if you think of it again. Okay.
Oh, I know what it was.
Okay.
I wondered if one of the ways to get people to buy into the bulbs was possibly passing out flyers when they pay their bills, telling them if you buy this, you're going to, over the lifetime of the bulb, spend this amount of money, but if you turn around and you buy this one, you're going to spend this X amount of dollars and what the savings would be. And, you know, even a poster at the pay window.
Okay, so doing publicity.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you. Okay. Do we?
You know, part of the dreaded Dodd-Frank financial reform, you said is a quotation mark, was to put on every credit card bill what the minimum payment, how long it would take to pay off the amount that was on your bill, and how much you would spend altogether to pay it off. And then they had another line that said, if you pay this much, you will save that much. And that would be something that would work with the period back here. I think something in that line. And we had to force the government had to force the credit card companies to do that. But now it's accepted, and people may or may not pay attention to it. But I think that if we can have some concrete figures, like they were saying, from trying out this phase one, then we could use those figures to present a scenario for
Okay. Well,
indulging in that program.
right. Well, I think we had that covered. Okay. Yep. It was in there. Let's see. Do we have any other comments? Questions? Okay. Do we have a motion to accept the report?
So moved.
Okay. We have a motion. A second.
Let me put it this way, I can second, but part of the recommendation, I don't feel that we need to be obligated, and that's the schedule at the back of it. That says the RFP will be done, recommended to be done in November, preparation, and then December. If we can exclude that part, I'll second.
So we did put this suggested schedule may vary depending upon board decisions and external and internal factors. So we wrote it in the report right under the recommendations because again, this was just kind of getting some ideas out there. And so we wanted to make sure you had that flexibility.
Thank you. And by accepting the report, which we're just saying that we have received it.
The way this item is written, the board's just being asked to accept the report.
I see, okay.
Subject to future determination of how to proceed.
Right.
If any.
And thank you, James. And by making it accepted, then it becomes a public document that we can share with people. You know, it's no longer a draft document, so that's a formality there. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion passed, so the report is now accepted. And the second question there is, do we want to go ahead with developing an RFP to get costs on developing the program?
I'd like to take just a little time to spend a little more time on the report, to get into it a little deeper, maybe ask staff some questions. So could we hold off on talking about an RFP until next month's meeting?
We could do that. However, tomorrow what Vent and I and Travis and Juliet and Joanne were going to do is go through and structure the RFP so while they're here on their last visit. And so we would just be initiating it. We wouldn't be issuing it yet. So you'd still have time to think about it. But we just want to start outlining it so that while they're still here, we have a working document.
I think that makes sense. I mean, it's not getting it on the street. It's not asking people to start bidding. It's just getting our ideas together and know what we're going to present.
Well, you can do they can do that without a motion here, can't they?
But I would like to know a little bit more about what is being proposed, to know what we want to look for in an RFP. In a RFP, I'm sorry. I mean,
I just like to read the report. That's all. I mean, better. I've kind of skimmed through it. I mean, 1 month is not going to make a difference.
Well, our contract with VEIC, does it end with the report then?
It is our final deliverable.
Yeah, this is the final deliverable, and we have allocated, the morning, like we said, to just kind of help frame up some of the, share our thoughts on what you might want to make sure is in an RFP so that you are protected and that you are getting a good result. And if, we could still do that if
I would think that you all could do that without us actually voting on talking about going forth with an RFP.
Okay, we'll plan on doing that then.
Great. Well, thank you very much for your time and good reading. Get a snack, sit down, a lot of maybe some coffee,
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
We're done.
So,
Ms. Hale had one more item for old and new business.
yes.
I wrote it down.
Thank you. Actually, I've wanted to talk about this for the last 3 months, but when it's 10 o'clock at night, I want to be able to walk out of here without being killed. and so I haven't brought it up. But it's only 7:30, so we're doing great. We can spend 2.5 hours discussing this. The thing I wanted to bring up was plant board emails with the board. I've noticed like the RFP or the get too many initials going here. The power purchase agreement that we received for the solar, that contract went out on private emails. It went, and I think as board members, we all have plant board emails. We need to use plant board emails for plant board business. And when we're using our private emails for plant board business, we're really not doing best practice. For one, the open records law says emails are supposed to be kept for 2 years. And so if you have it on your private device, do you really want to make sure you keep it for 2 years so you're not violating that law? I just think that we have the email available to us. We need to use it for plant board business and not be using our private email for plant board business.
And you're saying this pertains specifically to the power purchase agreement for the solar?
Well, it's not specifically to that. That was just one instance when I noticed the email addresses on that. There were private email addresses that was sent to, and I just think that you know, that we hear about hacking all the time. That was a document that was covered by proprietary information, our non-disclosure agreement, and it's just very bad practice for documents like that to be on private email. And I mean, that's just one instance. And I just think that we have it, we need to use it. We need to not be using our private email for plant board business, whether it's communicating amongst each other or getting things from outside or from the staff. We need to be using our plant board email rather than private email.
Okay.
And I guess I would just like to make a motion to that effect, so it will actually be, under obligation for us to do that, to have board members and new board members coming on to understand that they need to use plant board email.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Well, I wonder if we actually have to have a motion for
That's
something
kind
like
of my
this.
thing.
Well,
I think we got, as far as I know, we all use
What's
the
the
plant
problem?
board
It's on the
email.
record.
Yeah.
Just call the roll.
Doesn't matter to me one way or another.
Well, we
I
have
guess
to
the
have
only comment I would
discussion.
make is that from time to time, I think things do get sent for convenience, but other than that, they're always still copied on the plant board email. I don't think it matters one way or another.
Well,
What do you mean, what doesn't matter?
Whether we have a motion or not, because I think everybody's using the plant
Well,
board
the
email
motion's been
anyway.
made in second, so why not just follow through with it?
Well,
You have to, don't you?
Got a motion in a second?
right, but
Should be
usually
a vote.
after a motion and a second, you have the option of discussion, so that's what we're having is discussion. So, it sounds like maybe everybody's said what they want to say. Okay, so, Kathy, do you want to call this one individually?
Member Rosen?
No.
Member Hale?
yes.
Member Mason?
Yes.
Member Baldwin?
I'm going to vote no, but the reason I'm going to vote no is because I think everybody does it anyway.
Well, let me say something else about this, because one of the things is you may send a plant board business through your private email, and you may send it through your plant board. But if it gets hacked on your private, the plant board is liable. The plant board is legally liable for that breach, because they gave us an official email so things could be somewhat protected within their system. So when you go outside of that system, knowingly go outside of that system, and this vote seems like it's okay with some of us to do that, you are potentially putting the plant board in a legal problem if your private email is breached and something in it, a non-disclosed NDA document is in it, and it gets breached. You've put the plant board in a legal problem, potentially. So, but anyway, that's fine. We're good.
Okay. Do we have a need for a closed session?
Motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay.